So look, I need to tell you about something that's been sitting in ancient texts for thousands of years, and nobody's really talking about it. You know that guy Enoch from the Bible, the one who just disappeared? Yeah, that one. Genesis says God just took him. No death, no funeral, just poof, gone. But here's the thing most people don't know. Before Enoch got to his final destination, he didn't just teleport straight to heaven and call it a day. He went on a journey, a guided tour, if you will, through 7 different levels of spiritual reality. And what he saw in each one, man, it's wild. I'm talking about angels weeping over their fallen brothers. I'm talking about paradise and torment existing in the same space, separated by a gap you can actually see across but never cross. I'm talking about Enoch standing face to face with beings so powerful they make humans look like ants, and then he saw the throne. Now, before you click away thinking this is some fringe stuff, the Apostle Jude, Jesus' own brother, quoted Enoch's writings in the New Testament. So if the brother of Jesus thought this was legit, maybe we should pay attention. Today we're walking through all 7 heavens with Enoch, what he saw, what he said, what absolutely terrified him, and what left him speechless. And I'm telling you right now, by the time we get to the 7th heaven, nothing about your Bible is going to feel the same. Let's go. Alright, first things first, who even is Enoch? If you grew up in church, you probably heard his name exactly once, in one of those Bible genealogies that everyone skips over. You know, the so-and-so lived 900 years, had some kids, and died chapters. But when you get to Enoch, the pattern breaks, hard. Genesis 5:24 just drops this bomb. Enoch walked faithfully with God, then he was no more, because God took him away. Wait, what? No death, no grave, just, he was no more. The writer of Hebrews clarifies it. By faith Enoch was taken from this life, so that he did not experience death. He could not be found, because God had taken him away. Think about that. In all of human history, only 2 people got this treatment. Enoch and the prophet Elijah. That's it. Everyone else, death came knocking, but not for these 2. So clearly Enoch was someone special. The Bible says he walked with God for 300 years. That's not a casual Sunday stroll. That's intimacy. That's relationship. That's the kind of friendship where God says, you know what, I'm not letting death touch you. But here's the question nobody asks. What happened during that walk? What did Enoch see? What did God show him? Ancient texts give us the answer, and what Enoch recorded from his journey is about to blow your mind. Okay, so picture this. One moment Enoch is walking on earth, and the next moment everything shifts. The ground beneath his feet fades, the sky opens up, and suddenly he's standing in a place that's existed since day 1 of creation, but that no human eye has ever seen. The first heaven. And Enoch's first reaction, he's staring at water, massive cosmic reservoirs of water suspended above the sky. Remember Genesis 1 where it talks about God separating the waters above from the waters below? Yeah, Enoch is standing in that. He's seeing what Moses was describing. But it gets crazier. Enoch sees angels, not the warrior angels, not the worship angels. These are worker angels, angels assigned to weather. He describes watching angels responsible for snow, angels managing rain, angels controlling wind and lightning, each one at their post, carrying out their assignments with 0 mistakes. And Enoch realizes something that hits him hard. Every storm he'd ever seen on earth, it wasn't random. Every season that turned on time, not an accident. There were actual beings behind it all, following divine orders with perfect precision. In his writings, Enoch describes these storehouses, places where snow is kept, where hail is stored, where rain is gathered before it falls. Job 38 mentions these exact same storehouses when God is talking to Job. God asks, have you entered the storehouses of the snow? Enoch had, he'd walked through them, he'd seen them with his own eyes. And what does this tell us? Even at the first level, the outermost ring of heaven, everything is ordered, everything is governed, everything is intentional. If God runs the weather with this much precision, do you really think he's careless about your life? But Enoch's about to see something that makes the first heaven look peaceful, because the second heaven, that's where things get dark. The moment Enoch enters the second heaven, everything changes. Where the first heaven was light and order, this place is darkness and grief. And Enoch describes being hit with a wave of sorrow so heavy it almost knocked him over. Then he sees them. Fallen angels, chained in darkness, imprisoned, waiting. These aren't demons running around causing chaos on earth. These are the ones who already got caught. The ones who rebelled, who left their positions, who corrupted the earth so badly that God locked them up in this place until final judgment. And here's what got me when I read Enoch's account. These beings are fully conscious. They know exactly what they did. They know exactly what's coming, and the weight of that knowledge has crushed them. Enoch writes that their faces were filled with grief. Their eyes were hollow. And when they saw him, a human being, a mortal man walking through their prison, they did something that should make your blood run cold. They asked him to pray for them. Think about that. These are angels, beings of immense power and knowledge, and they're begging a human to intercede on their behalf because they know their own prayers can't reach heaven anymore. Their rebellion cut off that access permanently. And Enoch, man, he wept. This righteous man who walked with God for 300 years looked at these fallen beings and cried for them, not because they deserved mercy, they'd made their choice, but because he understood something we often forget. What they lost you still have: access to God, the ability to pray and be heard, the open door of grace. Peter and Jude both write about this place. 2 Peter 2:4 says God sent them to hell, putting them in chains of darkness to be held for judgment. Jude verse 6 describes angels who did not keep their positions of authority, but abandoned their proper dwelling. Enoch had walked through their prison, he'd looked into their eyes, he'd felt their despair. And his message to us is clear: don't take access to God for granted. Don't treat prayer like it's optional. These beings would give anything to have what you throw away every time you're too busy to talk to God. Now we're getting to the heaven that answers the question everyone wants to know: where do people go when they die? And what Enoch saw here is going to challenge everything you've been told. When Enoch stepped into the third heaven, the first thing that hit him was beauty. Overwhelming, breathtaking beauty. He describes a garden so magnificent it made Eden look like a rough draft, trees glowing with light, rivers flowing with honey, oil, and wine, fruit that looked more alive than anything on earth. This is paradise, the real deal. And the presence of God, Enoch says it rested over that place like a warm blanket of glory, peace, joy, rest, everything you've ever imagined heaven to be. Paul talks about being caught up to the third heaven in 2 Corinthians 12, same place. He saw things so sacred he couldn't even repeat them. Jesus told the thief on the cross, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Same location, third heaven. So Enoch's standing there, taking it all in, probably thinking, this is it. This is where we're all heading. But then he turns and he sees the other side. And his heart drops. On the opposite side of the third heaven, Enoch describes a place of complete contrast. Darkness where there had been light, cold where there had been warmth, isolation where there had been presence. This is where souls who rejected God are held, and Enoch could see them, he could hear them, and the gap between paradise and this place, he describes it as a chasm, fixed, permanent, unbridgeable. Jesus confirmed this exact layout in Luke 16. The rich man in torment, Lazarus in paradise, both in the same realm, both able to see each other, but separated by a gulf that cannot be crossed. And here's what Enoch understood that we often miss. The chasm isn't created at final judgment. It's created the moment you die. The choice you make in this life determines which side you wake up on in the next. Enoch writes that he could feel the weight of that truth pressing on him. This wasn't theoretical theology. This was real. People he knew were going to end up on one side or the other based on what they did with God's grace while they were alive. And that's why Enoch came back and told everyone he could about what he'd seen. He was trying to warn them, the door is open now. Grace is available now. But one day, that day is over. The third heaven shows us both destinies, both realities, side by side, so we can choose with full knowledge of what we're choosing between. By the time Enoch reaches the fourth heaven, he's already seen cosmic order, fallen angels, and the split between paradise and torment. You'd think nothing could surprise him anymore. But then he hears it. Singing, but not like any singing he'd ever heard on earth. This was a sound so pure, so powerful, so perfectly harmonized that it seemed to vibrate through his entire being. Enoch describes entering a realm of brilliant light, where the sun and moon move through their courses, but they're not alone. Angels are escorting them, singing over them, declaring the glory of God in a chorus that has never not once stopped since the day of creation. Think about that, right now, as you're watching this, the fourth heaven is alive with worship. While you were sleeping last night, it continued. When you were stressed about work or distracted by your phone, it never stopped. Enoch writes about standing there, listening and realizing, God's glory doesn't depend on our circumstances. His worthiness isn't measured by our moods. Whether we're having the best day of our lives or the worst, whether we're praising Him or ignoring Him, the fourth heaven is still singing. Psalm 19 suddenly made sense to him in a whole new way. The heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands. David wasn't being poetic, he was describing something real. Enoch had heard it, he'd stood inside that declaration. And here's what hit Enoch: we're invited to join that song. Not to start it, it's already going, but to add our voices to a worship that's been running uninterrupted for thousands of years. Your problems are real, your pain is real, but the song in the fourth heaven is still going. And when you worship God in your darkest moment, you're not creating something new, you're joining something eternal. From the sound of eternal worship, Enoch is taken to a place of crushing silence. The fifth heaven. And what Enoch describes here is honestly one of the most heartbreaking parts of his entire journey. He sees angels standing motionless, silent, their heads bowed, and the grief radiating from them is so thick he could feel it pressing against his chest. These are the watchers who stayed faithful, the ones who didn't fall, the ones who watched their brothers, their companions, their fellow servants, choose rebellion over obedience and descend to earth to corrupt humanity so badly it brought the flood. And now those faithful angels are standing in mourning, not speaking, not singing, just grieving. Enoch writes that he stood among them, and the silence was deafening. After hearing the continuous worship of the fourth heaven, this quiet felt wrong, broken. But here's what Enoch understood: their grief wasn't passive, it wasn't resignation. These angels understood something we often miss: the catastrophic cost of abandoning your assignment, the generational damage one act of rebellion can unleash. Genesis 6 talks about the sons of God taking human wives and corrupting the earth. Enoch saw the aftermath. He saw the faithful ones left behind, mourning the corruption their brothers had caused. And his takeaway: your faithfulness matters. Your decision to stay at your post when everything in you wants to quit, it's not a small thing. The fifth heaven declares it never was. Stay faithful, keep walking with God, because the alternative, Enoch saw where that leads, and it's not worth it. Now we're getting into territory that should make you sit up and pay attention. The sixth heaven is where Enoch meets angels unlike any he's encountered so far. These aren't warriors, they're not worshippers, they're scholars, archivists, record keepers. And Enoch describes watching them work. Angels assigned to study the movements of stars, the cycles of seasons, the intricate details of creation. But more than that, angels recording the deeds of every person who has ever lived. Every single person. Enoch writes that he saw books, scrolls, records being kept with meticulous precision, and when he realized what they were recording, it stopped him cold. Not just the big moments, not just the dramatic choices, everything. Every act of kindness done in secret, every sacrifice made when no one was watching, every prayer whispered at 3 a.m. when you thought you were alone, every time you chose obedience when rebellion would have been easier. It's all being recorded. Revelation 20:12 talks about the dead being judged, according to what they had done as recorded in the books. Malachi mentions a scroll of remembrance for those who honor God. Daniel saw the books being opened in the court of heaven. Enoch was standing in the place where those books are kept, and his name was in them. So is yours. Now here's what Enoch understood: this isn't about earning salvation. You can't work your way into paradise, that's grace through faith, period. But a life truly changed by grace produces something. It leaves evidence, a record worth reading. And here's the part that dropped Enoch to his knees. Among these record-keeping angels are intercessors, angels who take human prayers and carry them before God's throne. Revelation 8:3 describes it: an angel with a golden censer, offering incense with the prayers of God's people. Your prayers aren't disappearing into nothing. They're being carried by angels in the sixth heaven, presented before God, every single one. Enoch realized, I'm fully known, completely seen. Every moment of my life is recorded by beings who have been watching since I was born. And instead of being terrified, he was comforted, because it meant God had never missed a single detail. 6 heavens down, 1 to go. And this is where Enoch's entire journey has been leading. When Enoch reached the boundary of the 7th heaven, he couldn't move forward, not because something was blocking him, but because his legs literally stopped working. His body, this human body that had walked through 6 heavens, just froze. He describes a light ahead of him so intense it wasn't just something you saw with your eyes. It was something that penetrated you, passed through you, exposed every hidden thing inside you all at once. And in that light, Enoch saw them, the highest order of angels, seraphim, cherubim, beings so glorious, so consumed by worship that they literally can't do anything else. Isaiah saw these same beings in Isaiah 6. 6 wings, 2 covering their faces because even they can't look directly at God's glory, 2 covering their feet, 2 for flying, and they're crying out to each other in voices so loud they shake the foundations, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty." Enoch heard that cry, he felt it vibrate through his chest, and he realized this has never stopped, not for 1 second. Since before humans existed, these beings have been declaring God's holiness in an unbroken stream. Then the angels lifted him, carried him forward, because Enoch couldn't get there on his own. And that's when he saw it. The throne. Enoch describes it like Daniel did in Daniel 7, blazing with fire, wheels of flame, rivers of fire flowing from it, thousands upon thousands of angels standing before it, 10,000 times 10,000 in service around it. But it wasn't the throne that stopped Enoch's heart. It was who was sitting on it. The Ancient of Days, clothing white as snow, hair like wool, eyes like flames that see everything, past, present, future, every secret, every thought, every motive. This wasn't a distant god, this wasn't an abstract force, this was a person, the one who always was, always is, always will be. And Enoch, this man made of dust and breath, this human being just like you, stood in that presence, not because he was perfect, not because he deserved it, but because God chose to bring him there. Enoch writes that he fell on his face. What else could he do? Everything he'd seen in the previous 6 heavens suddenly made sense. The order of the first heaven, the prison of the second, the split in the third, the worship in the fourth, the grief in the fifth, the records in the sixth. All of it was pointing here, to this throne, to this God. The one who governs everything, the one who misses nothing, the one who is so completely other than us that we can barely comprehend him, yet so personal that he walked with Enoch for 300 years before bringing him home. And when Enoch came back, when he returned to tell others what he'd seen, his message was simple. The throne is occupied, the God you serve is real, he's not small, he's not manageable, he's not absent. He's the Ancient of Days, and everything exists to declare one truth, he is Lord. So here's the thing. Enoch walked through all 7 heavens and came back with a message, and that message is as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. We live in a world that's constantly trying to convince you that none of this is real, that God is either absent or indifferent or just a concept people made up to feel better about death. And into that noise, Enoch's testimony stands like a mountain and says, I was there, I saw it, the throne is occupied, the angels are worshipping, the records are being kept, paradise is real, judgment is real, and God has never stopped paying attention for even 1 second. Every heaven Enoch walked through reveals something about how God operates. The first heaven says, he governs everything, even the weather. The second heaven says, rebellion has consequences and they're permanent. The third heaven says, your choices in this life determine your eternity. The fourth heaven says, worship never stops, even when you're not participating. The fifth heaven says, your faithfulness matters more than you know. The sixth heaven says, every detail of your life is seen and recorded. The seventh heaven says, God is on the throne and he's never stepped down. Look, I get it, life is confusing, the culture is loud, you've got a million voices telling you what to believe and what to ignore. But here's what I need you to understand. Enoch didn't walk through those 7 heavens just to satisfy his own curiosity. God showed him those things so he could come back and tell us, to warn us, to wake us up. The door is still open, grace is still available, but one day, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe 50 years from now, that door closes, and the chasm Enoch saw in the third heaven becomes permanent. You don't get to negotiate after death. You don't get to change sides once you see which one you ended up on. The choice happens now, while you're still breathing, while you still have access. What those fallen angels in the second heaven would give to have what you're throwing away every time you say, later, to God. What they would sacrifice to have one more chance to pray and be heard. You have that chance right now. The God who walked with Enoch for 300 years, who showed him 7 heavens, who brought him face to face with the throne, that same God is walking with you. Right now, in whatever room you're in, he knows your name, he's always known it. And he's not asking you to be perfect before you come to him. He's asking you to come as you are and let him make you into who you're meant to be. Enoch's message is simple, don't wait, don't waste this, Don't treat grace like it's guaranteed to last forever. Because the throne is real, the seventh heaven is real, the books in the sixth heaven are real. The split in the third heaven is real. And your next heartbeat isn't promised. If this video hit you somewhere deep, if something in these seven heavens woke something up inside you, don't let it pass. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you know you need to make things right with the God on that throne, do it now, not tomorrow, not when life calms down. Now. Jesus made the way. He lived the perfect life you couldn't live. He died the death your rebellion earned. And he rose from the dead as proof that the God of the seventh heaven has made a way home for you. Not based on how good you've been, based entirely on his grace and your faith. The throne is real, the invitation is real, and Enoch's message after walking through all seven heavens is this. God is not absent, he's not overwhelmed, he's not scrambling to figure out what's next. He's on the throne, he's always been on the throne, and he's inviting you to walk with him the same way Enoch did, faithfully, consistently, unashamed. So what are you going to do with that?